Because metaverse, it is coined now, but it's anything in which you can, any platform in which you join,
Hmm.
interact with others as well, and if you log off, it still stays when you log in back. It's persistent. Like if you have some, uh, like in Verbala, if you have created an avatar,
Yeah.
it stays and when you log in again,
Yes. Yes.
and you are able to talk to other people, interact with them in real time, they
Hmm.
can hear you, so it is also a metaverse.
Ah, yes. That's right. That's right. Interesting. All right.
So the character that you would adopt in the metaverse would live beyond the person who actually it represents.
Yes,
Okay.
yes. In fact, people who have been in the older games, they just stay as a user ID. You've probably not met them,
Hmm.
you just played with them. It stays on, they don't, unless the game is sold off, deleted. So there are some games which are not metaverses, where these games are, limited. They are not interoperable or anything. But if you played Pokemon Go in 2016 and left it, and today if you join again, you will find everything intact as it is,
Mm.
right? So it stays on and you interact with people. Um, it is augmented reality. You literally can, your physical world, like the places that have larger footfalls are created as, social pokestops and all of that. So it maps your local map exactly in the app.
But
Like
Surabhi, don't you think it will be, the character lies, but there won't be any activity in that, right?
in
Like in Pokemon Go, you leave at that point. When you come back, you resume the activity from where you left.
Yes.
Right? And during that period, there is a kind of stasis during that period, right?
So
Your character is there.
it stays. Yes, everything stays. Your points, whatever you
Yep.
have, points you have attained, or whatever activities you've done, whatever you've played, whatever places you
Yes.
visited, or whichever
All
characters you've
those.
collected with that date of when it was, everything as it is, you get back.
Yes. Yes. That
So
history remains there, and you can resume from where you left.
Yes.
it's a non-fungible basically. Like I think that's where the term NFT comes from.
Um, so yes, it is, because you are your one unique player. You won't find another duplicate like you are,
Okay.
right? And I think in the game it's not allowed, but what gamers typically do, or even school children, they have these trading cards. They are, Pokemon, let's say, is a popular cartoon, like GI Joe, or anything,
Yep. There are
Tamagotchis,
Pokemon trading
anything
cards.
that people are interested in, right? It could be golf, it could be anything. The moment something is valuable, right? Let's say a tennis shot is valuable, the winning shot of tennis, or it could be anything that is valuable. There are limited editions. Now, maybe Nadal has signed a tennis ball,
Okay.
right? So,
Sure.
so
Yeah.
there is a value assigned to it.
Right.
Whoever has it has a value, right? And you can auction it someday if you have it, right? It is going to fetch like Michael Jackson's clothes, anything, absolutely anything that is unique and is assigned value by a community that believes in that, whether it's a game, whether it's an artist, whether it could be anything, any item,
Right.
right? And if you create a digital form of it with its, the trademark, or the authenticity is maintained digitally, that's exactly what an NFT is.
Mm.
Yeah.
So if you see Australian Open, had NFTs. So wherever the ball falls in the court, it is assigned some value, and they have plans to have like it for years and years, for 10 years. Like if you're a tennis fan, you are going to watch it every year. So it
Oh,
builds this community of fan base which will follow that sport, which will follow it regularly, and will have always value those iconic moments in
Mm,
future as well.
So unlike earlier, where objects had value, auctionable value, now even events are also into that space.
mm,
Yes.
Moments in time captured and converted into NFT.
mm,
So based
Yes.
on the viewership and credibility, then that can
Mm.
fetch money.
mm.
Like
Okay.
like I try to explain with least amount of technical jargon so that it
yeah.
is relatable.
We certainly appreciate that. I mean, not so many
Yeah,
people take the time to explain that. It's like they
yeah.
use the term, like, what does that mean? Don't
Yeah,
they?
so it's instead of the term, you should just explain what it is, and then
Right.
people understand it very easily. It's not,
Yeah.
it's like this. I've heard a lot of these people talk on podcasts or Twitter Spaces, and who have already understand this. It's I think Chris Dixon. He mentioned that in like 1990, it was difficult to explain the internet to people who have just watched TV.
Mm,
Right. So right now it is difficult to explain Web3 when nobody is using it. You don't use it day
mm,
to day, right? You can't see, it's not tangible, it's not imagined or created. People are building it right now.
yeah. One other thing I kind of learned for this NFT is that I joined one of the podcasts. It's
Mm.
called Joy Ito, who's a ex MIT lab person. And once you join that podcast, you'll get actually a card, which is an NFT.
Oh,
Oh,
Uh,
cool.
yeah, and it's quite easy. And you just one of the things that you just open this MetaMax, which is um, yeah, it
Mm,
took a
the
little bit of
wallet.
while.
Mm,
Yeah, a
mm,
wallet, and you just paste that code, and you just paste it, and then next day, you when you open that MetaMax, uh, and that is linked with the thing called OpenSea,
mm.
you'll get that you'll get that photo
Right.
photo of Joy Ito, and and I said, oh wow, and I saw it, and then when I looked down, there's like all the people who joined the podcast
Mm.
actually is selling that card already. They're
ah,
transferring it. So it seems it is very very useful, and one other thing I learned is that um, you should try it. I think it's the easiest thing is you just try one thing, and I learned about the difficulty of, let's say, on Ethereum. There's the thing called gas, which is like quite expensive. So I think the best way is to really just simply use it, and it seems that NFT, the OpenSea market seems to be very easy to use. And what I'll try to do is I'll try to make my recording, my saxophone recording, and create an NFT. That's one thing I would love to do as one trial. But it seems that this market is really, really evolving. So a lot of things actually changes just in 2 weeks. So
Yes, yes.
it is like really moving thing, and I'm still trying to figure out how this would also evolve. Let's say, as Surabhi mentioned, what will be the implication to the bankers, and maybe a different person. I'm sure there is so many ways of using it, and it seems that this thing is really taken off by the artist, from certain perspectives. But I think there is quite a lot of I'm still searching. I'm still searching, and would like to hear what could be the benefit that we can pursue. Let's say as opposed to crypto or other technologies. So it's yeah, that's one topic I would love to learn, and yeah, to try it.
So
Yeah.
like I was mentioning, that once you assign value to an item and it's digitized, and you want to retain that trust and that ownership, uh, for that blockchain to work, you have to, it's like, you have to pay the fees for that blockchain to keep working, and for it to stay on that blockchain, which is why you have these gas fees.
Mm.
Now, most of these NFTs are costly because Ethereum is the blockchain. Now, Ethereum and Bitcoin have their own scarcity, which is why the prices are volatile and demand and all of that. But there are new blockchains such as Solana, where you can create these mint NFTs for free.
Oh
There are
wow.
newer blockchains where you can do all of this for free, but see, the moment you do something for free, there should be someone willing to buy. The value of these things lies in the exchangeable value of whatever you are creating.
Mm. I see. I see. Yeah. So, and I also heard some upgrade in Ethereum.
Yes, that's
Yes, that
that's
will
what.
happen.
So it's very what I mean. The moment they upgrade and they allow certain things, I mean, these are the first generation blockchain, right? They didn't. They were not. See, once you have first prototype or first product, then you think about the inefficiencies, and there are the new ones that are developing. So Algorand, Solana, these are interoperable, they're scalable, they are very fast, and they don't have the inefficiencies of the previous blockchain. So the moment they have a product roadmap, again, you might see a spike in all the cryptocurrencies all over again. And some of that's why it is volatile, because it's changing fast. I think there are developers and everyone who's interested, after their usual work hours, they get into all these activities weekends.
Mhm.
That's how you see all the spikes on the weekends in
Mm.
cryptocurrency, because they're all experimenting after their usual job and on
Yes. Yes.
weekends.
Mm.
So
Yes.
Russia just threatened they're gonna ban crypto mining and cryptocurrency, right? Because of the cost of mining. And India just unbanned cryptocurrency, right?
India just taxed it at 30%.
Which is very close to what we have here. Capital gain tax, 25 to 32% in the United States.
So, Germany, for example, has tax regulations and everything since years, but no one really talks about Germany. Nor does Germany talk about it, because they don't deal with the outside. They just are within. They have some. They don't consider it as a legal tender,
Mm.
and they call this technology as trust technology.
Sure.
And
It is trust technology.
beyond I think 600 euros, there is some tax, and if you're an entrepreneur, that they have their own set of rules without calling it a legal tenders. And they've
Mm.
allowed institutional investors to invest up to 20% of their assets in cryptocurrency.
Ah,
So that creates an ecosystem familiarization. When your financial institutions, investment houses, banks, all of them, if they are allowed to invest, that's how they can create. I think they have 9 crypto exchanges. DBS has one in APAC.
Mm.
But no one from Germany talks about this. Nor do they tweet. There's nothing, right? Nobody talks about this.
Interesting. Mm. I just kind of if year and a half ago, it seems that I met some people in Berlin startup. They're focused on energy and also connecting with blockchain to decentralize. And it seems that the Berlin has quite a another startup ecosystem focused on specific technology in blockchain, it seemed that there was also a little bit of fintech players, if I remember.
Yes,
Um,
yes.
yeah, but yeah, there's so many things uh, news arise, and I'm also curious to see, let's say, how Surabhi and everyone kind of keeps up with these news. It's like for me, the best way I found is to use just buy one, but since there's so many, I can't try
It's
everything.
it's it's huge. Like someone just shared the gaming landscape. I mean, it's so huge that you cannot keep track of these technologies. Like people are
Yeah,
talking about CBDCs,
yeah,
and they will also talk about stable coins. They are not the same. They are very different, and there are
mm,
nuances. There are legal, regulatory, taxation, all sorts of, when you're changing the governance itself,
yes.
it's very different.
Mm,
Um, so I think in interest of time, I'll just describe that article that I'd written
thank you,
about.
thank you, thank you. That's great.
So typically, banks and banking are, we so everyone always talks about bank accounts, banks, and this is illegal and all of that. But essentially, you do not wake up in the morning saying you want to interact with your bank account or check your bank account. You look for, probably experiences, things to do, your leisure hours, your interests, your hobbies. I think it's consumption that drives banking, essentially. So, and if all these brands, whether it's Nike, Clinique, Gucci, Samsung, Walmart, Australian Open, every brand of every sector is literally getting into non-fungible tokens and metaverse to engage their customers. Because see, whenever you're consuming something, like you buy a house, you buy a car, you buy new shoes, you don't keep it in a closet. You want to show it to someone, you want to share it, it gets appreciated, it has certain value. So your consumption is social, right? So
Certainly.
getting it completely on digital, assigning it a value and making it exchangeable, I think that is the key crux of all of the digital assets and the metaverse.
Mm,
And why gaming and metaverse? Because it is strongly linked to investments.
mhm,
Like all these gaming things, even if it is Pokemon Go, right? You have certain things to, for certain actions, right? And you need those things for certain actions and goals. So either you earn points or you're buying something. You have to strategize how you're using your resources to attain certain goals. So you have to think strategically, like how you think about investments. There is always a risk. You might lose, you might not win. In fact, I think one of our Stanford, Annie Druk, has written a book, Thinking in Bets.
okay.
So he talks about how poker is
Oh
an
yes,
essential life skill than chess,
yes.
right? So gaming is very, very closely related to investments and how you think strategically. So it is not like, it's not just a child's play. And if a child is good at gaming, that person is very good in investments, taking risks, and all of that. Right. So that's how, even in our strategic leadership, I think we had this module called Platform Wars.
Hmm. Oh yes.
Uh, right. So in
Yeah.
that, if you see, Microsoft recently purchased Activision Blizzard,
Mm,
and it becomes big news because Facebook renamed itself Meta and all of that. But the essential piece lies in, are you creating a platform to get people onto it, and do you have the distribution network, which is what Microsoft has done over last 20 years already. It has bought gaming studios, it built its consoles and Xbox, which are competing always with Sony,
Right.
right?
mhm,
You have to create that ecosystem of, game creation and gamers, and have your own uh, gadgets to have them onboarded. That's how you control the larger pie of the value chain.
mm,
And Google Stadia was going to go cloud. You could have played games on mobile, but they couldn't do it. It was unsuccessful. They sold off 2 studios last year. Apple couldn't do it
Right.
either. So, which is why Microsoft's saying that we are into metaverse, we are going to bring Excel and PowerPoint into the metaverse. It reach. I mean, people who've not even done gaming, not interested even on Facebook,
Oh,
Did we lose you, Surabhi?
oh, Surabhi,
Yes, we lose.
we lost her.
Yeah, seems so.
Let's wait for a few minutes. Oh,
Yeah.
now she's
Yep,
back.
He's
she's
back.
back.
I was sorry. I
No worries.
Okay.
okay. Sorry, I didn't realize that. So I was
It's
just
okay.
saying that you need to have this network effects. You need to have your buyers and sellers and interest in that same platform, which is what Microsoft has done over time now. Excel is used by so many people who are not even on Facebook.
Mm,
And if you bring that, and they have GitLab, I think GitHub, they have
GitHub.
LinkedIn, GitHub, they have bought communities. They have not just bought these platforms, they have bought developers, they have bought professionals onto their
mm,
platform, right? So they are the strongest in these network effects,
mm.
which nobody else has been able to do, nor Facebook, nor Google, nor Apple.
I see. I see. Makes sense.
That's why the moment Microsoft says it's going to do something, it is going to permeate to a lot of people.
Mm,
And then we also see the hardware that is important. Let's say if you talk about AR, VR for metaverse, that's the usual presentation that everyone does about metaverse. You have this virtual world, which
mm,
the older people are not able to relate to. They just think it's gaming and it's all of that. But if you see, they made a figurine. I think Rohit from our Navigators batch designed
mhm,
it
mm,
for the NVIDIA CEO at the
mhm,
keynote. So they launched all these products and devices that can support faster gaming and all these metaverse. So you need that sort of infrastructure, those devices, and the hardware to support all these things. And in his keynote speech, he had this figurine as like this avatar giving the keynote speech, and it was actually someone else doing it. So that's how powerful this is. Like,
mm.
imagine you attending simultaneous meetings in different markets or different time zones simultaneously.
Wow.
That is the utility of metaverse. Not like recreating the physical into virtual, but rather, extending yourself where you couldn't be in your physical sense.
Wow. It's powerful.
So I think the hyper real ones are a little creepy, uh, because they make a figurine. It is the moment your human psyche can recognize it's a virtual. You are more comfortable because you can recognize it's not the person, right? Whereas AI, which is hyper real, and then you see news items which say, oh, it's difficult to distinguish and all of that. I think Google Plex had done that with their voice and AI. Then there are security concerns, there are privacy concerns. You don't know who you're talking to. You are not comfortable, right? The
Mm,
moment you make something small, elf-like figurine, okay, this is a metaverse. This is, it's a figurine, and you are comfortable. Maybe the marketing that this small avatar or figurine does, it's more acceptable, because if you're changing um, technology to such an extent, it needs to have this ease and comfort of adoption. You can't suddenly bombard someone with something that's not comfortable.
mm,
And so everyone typically thinks games have always been around. Whenever you say metaverse, people just say, oh, what, Call of Duty and all of that. That. But it's actually the cross pollination of technologies. Like, you're able to create this digital tokenized asset. Like, it's not just a JPEG. It has ownership. It is proven. It is trusted, and it is going to stay there. You can exchange it, and you are the owner. I think this community ownership and the incentive models around this is what is driving this entire change, all of these put together. And so there are a lot of play play to earn games, and there is Axie Infinity, and there are so many things out there, but essentially it's what people are interested in, it's play and earn. Like whatever maybe your hobby, you if you do that and if you earn, like it could be X to earn. An advanced stage of this would be you can do anything to earn, you don't have to work. So jobs are not essentially going to be like jobs, like which is how you have these decentralized autonomous organizations and all these things, which is an uncomfortable topic because we've learned in power that people want to be in power and have control and resources and hierarchy, right? So it is against all that is inherently been there across centuries. So that's how you see these debates between Web3 within people, right? I think Jack Dorsey versus others, and you see all of these news that they're fighting because he says that it's not owned by a person. It's essentially the VC money that is going into these startups, which are saying that they are decentralized.
Okay.
So it has multiple layers. While you say it, community and people and all of who is paying for all of this, they are the VCs, and you again have all the banks and governments putting in money for these startups and VCs and all of that. So it is quite complicated. It's uh, and there are articles that completely say whatever you're seeing is just UI. You are not interacting directly with the blockchain. It's lying somewhere else. So there are these things that are still evolving. There are still debates on how these things work. But Bloomberg thinks that Metaverse will go to an 800 billion market because there is value in it. Uh, th- so there's one tweet that explained it really well, that it's a point, it is not a place. Metaverse is not a place, it is a point in time where your digital value is worth more than your physical presence, and you're not limited by your physical limitation. I think that is the value of Metaverse. And when we talk about banking, there are three main areas. It is a new market, right? Anything can be digitized. Like if you have a wine collection or a scotch collection, you create a digitized like value to it. Like if someone assigns a value to it, your bank knows that this is not a bankable asset, right? You can have your deposits, you can have your investments, but the moment you assign a value to your wine and that gets added to your portfolio, you deserve a better tier, you deserve better rewards, maybe discounts on products and services and so on and so forth. So Accenture calls this non-bankable assets.
Non-bankable assets.
So how would that look like is, again, you will require a digital wallet, you will require someone who verifies and assigns a value to it, and and the bank should have a product engine which stamps it as a ledger entry. So then that person or that account has this view of that this is the total value. The traditional banking assets, these non-bankable assets, you have these wine collections or trophies or whatever that may be, there is some value to these things. So to be able to digitize and create this. And in blockchains also you have some. So what our data lies on the blockchain is on-chain data, and whatever we have traditionally is off-chain, which is not on the blockchain. Now if you combine these two, like I gave this example, that's what they call off-chain and on-chain. Then you create a lot of new credit scoring, a more holistic view of what the person holds. So basically your NFT is verifiable data. When we say data is important and data sharing across platforms, uh, a stretch would be to say open banking is something that you are able to share between banks. So to be able to share such information across banks, would be like the metaverse extension of sharing verified data across different banks, across different platforms. Like,
Interesting.
um, and right now your data lies in a database,
Yep.
right? So it 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 is prone to be hacked or whatever, right? Whereas and there are a lot of data privacy issues all over the place, right? In blockchain you can have these zero knowledge proofs where you don't get access to the data, but you come to know it is verified, it is right, so the data stays more secure. I think ING has implemented R3 Corda with zero knowledge proof. So there are banks experimenting all these different things, and so that's how the improved data points you have, the validation of data, aggregation, the infrastructure and the connectivity on these open standards, cross-chain NFTs, like, let's say what is an OpenSea? If multiple banks accept it, if multiple platforms are interoperable, then there is value because there are more people who can exchange whatever they value. Like, it could be just anything. It could be football, it could be cricket, it could be like fashion. Like there are like it's countless, which is why you see so many things popping up everywhere all the time, because there are so many things people are interested in. And if you see these new blockchains, right, they are very fast, their operational costs are almost zero. Unlike this Bitcoin mining, Ethereum, it's costly because the construct was different, a little inefficient, because those were the first versions. But if you see banking, fees have not really changed much in like over 150 years. I think recently one bank got rid of the overdraft fees. It is already an overdraft. You already know this person is unable to pay. On top of that, you're charging some fees. That's how fintechs are winning, because banks have not changed their fees over time. Whereas you use these new technologies which have zero operating costs, zero fees, more efficiencies. Transactions are like multiple times faster than what Visa, Mastercard. I think Visa is already, I'm sure they are already doing all of these and invested in new technologies, but the current uh, speeds are very slow. And then you have decentralized finance, which we had Avina who explained Goldfinch
Mm.
once, right? So this is a completely new way of lending,
Mm.
which if banks do not participate, they will stay out of it. So they will have to consider how can they get into this. Like JP Morgan has its own stable coin, JP Morgan coin.
Mm.
So they become the first and gain that supremacy in that continent or country. Similarly, every country, continent, there will be banks trying to be the first one so that they capture and exchange that value. It's about being first and being able to distribute amongst a lot of people that uh, gains value. Like, and because these things require speed, your immersive experiences like AR or VR, you have 5G coming up, which is like 13 times faster than 4G. And there is so much written about 5G, and there are so many controversial things like bans, and they have issues with the airports because they have the common C band, which is shared between these devices, the bands which 5G uses, and the helicopters and older airplanes, Boeing 777, they all belong to a technology which use the same band as 5G. So essentially, if we use 5G, the aviation sector needs to change its devices as well to at least not get into it. It will take time. It's not easy, but for now, I think they're not going to have 5G around the airports. So
Mhm.
that means 4G and 5G will coexist for quite some time, longer than maybe expected, unless all these helicopters have this added cost. I think they are the ban in US or the issues are because it's a sector which is already affected by the pandemic. On top of that, if you tell them to invest for a new technology, that's not really viable for them, which is why it's a heated debate. But eventually, over time, you have like 40 countries or territories having 5G, and is going to have the spectrum auction of 5G this year. So there will definitely be people who are going to adopt, or countries who are going to completely adopt of how they can solve these issues. And there is then like we spoke about like decentralized futures and finances. There's this good video of Chainlink which explains why or how, like, you have our current systems have paper guarantees where um, you are given a note, a promissory note, you given guarantees, and you hope that this will stay in future, or this will be the proof that you will have to prove, against any future, like this is a note, it has a value, so the central bank has promised the bearer a value. Similarly, all your legal documents, all the documentation or paper guarantees, that's how organizations work, they are audited, they have to pass the audit. The proof is done later, whereas in these technologies there is no proof to be done later. The truth doesn't change, it doesn't have to be proven later, it is encoded in the system. So that's how it completely changes the way things are structured. And, and there is a good video which I'll just post it here so y'all can see it. It's by Chainlink and their future roadmap. They explain this concept very well. This link is there even in my article as well. Like how you have Enron and Wirecard still happening because you're hoping it will not happen. Whereas here it's not going to happen. It's already encoded. That's how different this is. And um, like your counterparty risk is encoded. You have like there are platforms like Wald where you can buy a fraction of a Bitcoin for just, what, like less than $1 or $1, and you can earn interest on that as well.
Wow.
Right. So if you have, so the fact that it is taxed at 30% is incorrect because this is accessible to people with lower income, and they can, for the risk appetite, I know there are bans and all of that, but there is a chance of people making money now because they don't have to depend on the existing have and have nots. They can somewhere invest probably and hope to get much higher returns. If you see, the banking returns have decreased over time. It's like our parents used to have like 14% return and we have like 6%, 7% return.
Well, interest rates are on the rise, so they'll
That
recoup it
is
soon.
liquidity issue. It's not good. I don't think interest rates rising is it's not good for consumption.
Yeah, if it doesn't affect unemployment, but the Phillips curve, I think quarter point every quarter is not bad. They can handle it.
And yeah, so that's essentially what all of this is like. It's multiple technologies and multiple concepts evolving at the same time, because you're using the technology in multiple ways. If it's decentralized, if the government, you do not require the regulator, you do not require a notary. Like Corda R3 has it in itself components which are called notary, and they do that within the blockchain. There are data oracles which will do it within themselves. And so that's how NFTs are not like, these there are a lot of articles that will say that NFTs are useless and all of that, but uh, the fact that you can get a loan on an NFT and mortgages on NFT collection. So it is going to be within a community. It is going to be decided by a community which is offline or in a bank, and therefore you there is a value to it in that community. Right? Something a baseball card for someone in US could be very valuable and
Yeah.
valuable within that society. It is irrelevant to someone in India, for example. Right? So it's going to create these communities which assign value to things, so that you cannot right click and save that community, or you're not like paying just for the JPEG. That's that narrative is, I think, put to rest now. And like as I said, like metaverse, like Verbilla was a metaverse. It is a Pokemon Go. So there are multiple types of metaverses. The moment people talk about about metaverses, they start showing you all these VR sets and all this, high like super future virtual worlds and all of that, which exists, no doubt, but they can be simpler metaverses for different customer segments, for different use cases as well. It need not be all these haptic devices. It really depends. Like we didn't have mobile phones few years ago, like each one of us, or we didn't have PCs. So similarly, maybe VR sets, lighter ones, or your specs could have it, or something like that. I mean, that's to evolve, but it's it's going to be there if there is value. And so a lot of banks and brokerages are trying to create these virtual environments. BNP, Citi, Bank of America has announced like they do VR trainings in them, some over 4,000 financial service centers and all of that. But is it just a virtual environment, or do people interact? We are not sure. Like we had Verbilla, but there is no digital merchandise that you can buy. It's not like your avatar has a Stanford logo jacket for which you pay a token, and because you have logged in X number of times, it gives you a coin and you log in often, so it you collect those coins and you can buy. And so they not monetize it in any manner, but that is something that they could look at. Then it would really be like gamification and the metaverse thing that we see otherwise. So it's like a range of metaverses that will exist, not necessarily the ones with VR sets are metaverse. And I think for fintechs, it's going to be easy to become a finverse because they have the advanced infrastructure and they're nimble and all of that. You already have a buy now pay later for digital assets. Google is building its digital assets team and they're partnering with crypto exchanges. So yes, the big techs and the fintechs can easily get into this. So it's for banks to understand where they can find value by partnering with someone or creating that niche area.
That's a lot
Yeah.
of stuff for you, Sashi.
Thank you. Thanks, Surabhi. This is so great. And yeah, I guess, going back to this, how this NFT can actually create, as Robbie mentioned about this non-bankable asset,
Hmm.
this creating the, using that technology, you can always monetize based on that. And how this can also improve the way of, with these data, you can also get a new credit scoring system, and also connecting with other banks to using an open banking system. So I'm just like, one of the thing I'm wondering is, moving forward, what will be the role and the skill sets that, let's say, the people in bank will need to look at, is something that I'm curious to know moving forward with decentralization. Yeah,
I
yeah,
think
that's yeah.
It's the ability to understand that apart from the currency there is going to be value for a lot of other things.
Mm.
See,